You have arrived at Planet Who Doesn't Have a Podcast.
Welcome back to Who Doesn't Have a Podcast. Joining me today, the Homo Spectacular to my Homo Aqua. Not sure about that one. The Gem-Voy to my Envoy. The Am Smasher to my Ambassador. It's Dan Moss.
Greetings all.
It's not my best work. So, we have just seen the first two episodes of The War Between the Land and the Sea, which is the long-anticipated first spin-off of the Whoniverse. Note, there's no Whoniverse branding anywhere. I don't know if you picked up on that. I thought there'd be a Whoniverse title card, but there wasn't. I haven't watched it on iPlayer, so maybe there is on iPlayer. But
I've seen a clip somewhere where there's been... In fact, no, I have seen a clip. Maybe it's not on iPlayer. Maybe it depends on region, but there is an alternate intro on iPlayer.
With the Whoniverse branding, the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I've seen it. Whether or not it is a thing across the board, I'm not too sure. But they just kind of throw you straight in, don't they?
They did, yeah, because they didn't... you could kind of watch those first two episodes that they released, and because I watched them live last night, and you could be forgiven for not really knowing it's a Doctor Who thing, just in terms of how they went into it. Because they pushed out the Whoniverse thing and they had that Whoniverse title card, which is very Marvel. I would have expected them to lead with that through every Doctor Who product that comes out for the next whatever, but they didn't, which I think is an interesting choice. But anyway, we've both watched it. We both watched the first two episodes. You've watched it more recently than I did, so I'll throw it over to you. Generally, what did you think?
My overwhelming thought is, where was this quality of writing in Who? I feel like this was absolutely stellar to begin with. It throws you straight into the deep end, and that is a pun. And I was just completely blown away. I got major throwbacks to other bits of Russell T Davies' work, so things like, in very small part, It's a Sin, but more so Years and Years, which was a drama that came out on BBC One quite a few years.
I haven't seen Years and Years, but apparently it's excellent.
If you've watched the first two episodes of War Between Land and the Sea, there are major similarities to the way it presents itself to Years and Years as well, in terms of kind of the political message of it all, in terms of other mainstream messages of kind of the state of the world at the moment, the relationships, which I feel was a major setback, I suppose, with Who, because when Russell T Davies is a king at forming meaningful human relationships, and the story kind of comes secondary, and so I feel like so far we've got a really strong balancing act to that, and it's reminded me of some of his former work and previous Who. I did watch, on a complete side note, the second Christmas special, The Runaway Bride, just the other day, and I forgot just how brilliant Russell T Davies is at putting the character first and then the story second. With The War Between the Land and the Sea, obviously it's a bit of a mix between the two, because there's a lot going on right from the get-go. It throws you in straight away. Thoroughly impressed. I didn't really know what to expect. You see, the trailers gave away very little.
And it's an odd first choice for a spin-off, isn't it? It's not the most obvious thing you would do.
Yeah, it's definitely, it goes so far against the grain of, like Sarah Jane or Torchwood and stuff like that. The fact that it is a completely separate entity with the unit link. And I think I counted 2 or 3 references to the Doctor across those first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Clear as day that you've got that bonding link, and we'll probably get onto that in just a moment. But I think as far as a standalone series goes, it stands upon its own 2 feet. As part of the Whoniverse,
its own 2 fins.
Its own 2 feet. Clap, clap, clap. How do you make of it?
It's interesting. I'll tell you what I'll do just quickly is I'll just do a brief recap for people that don't know much about this. So it's show ran and written by Russell T Davies and Pete McTee. The cast, we've got Russell T. Russell T. Tovey. We've got Russell Tovey as Barclay Pierre Dupont. We've got Gugu Umbata Raw as Salt. We've got Gemma Redgrave returning as Kate Lethbridge Stewart. Alexander Devrient, I hope I'm saying that correctly, as Colonel Ibrahim. Sexy Colonel Ibrahim. And we've got Ruth Madeley as Shirley Ann Bingham. And we've got Colin McFarlane as General Austin Pearce, who we last saw in Torchwood, Children of Earth, which was quite a cool throwback. Generally, I was reading this in the press launch up to this. This and Children of Earth are very much set in the same world. They've got overlapping characters. I think we're going to see some Torchwood appearances, by the way, but we'll get into that later. They've got overlapping characters, and apparently they use a lot of the same sets. And when Russell T Davies has said that someone should splice together scenes from Children of Earth with this, because you'll have a lot of fun noticing like the same corridors, same sets. Obviously, you've got Colin McFarlane as the same character, that General Austin Pearce. And if you think about it as well, very similar in terms of humanity receiving an alien species and creating a container for it. So in this, they create the water tank for the Homo Aqua, and in Children of Earth, that big smoke thing for the 456, and the 456 get a mention in this. I don't know if you noticed when General Austin Pearce is explaining to Barclay why they need a civilian as witness. I think he mentions the 456 protocols, which I thought was a neat little reference. But sorry, that was a big ramble just to sort of introduce the sort of concept of the show. So essentially, it is Homo Aqua, the rebranded Sea Devils, sort of bringing a war to humanity because we've ruined their ecosystem, which I think is a pretty neat idea. Generally, like you, I really enjoyed it. The whole time I was thinking, God, I'm enjoying this more than I've enjoyed Doctor Who in the past 2 years. Elements of Doctor Who I've really, really enjoyed, certain episodes, just in large part. I wonder if it's like an age thing, I wonder if it's like a maturity thing. But when Russell T Davies was announced as coming back to Doctor Who, I thought that it would be more like this, to be honest. So I'm really glad this exists. This feels more consistent with what they were doing in the 60th anniversary specials, to be honest. It feels like it lives in that universe more than it lives in the universe of the past 2 years, which is, I don't know what's happened there, but it just feels a little bit inconsistent. But yeah, overall, I'm really enjoying the general vibe of the show.
It's really interesting that you mentioned the themes and obviously the fact that you've enjoyed this one more, because I think to a point that's kind of where Who maybe fell a bit flat, is that I think in some cases they tried to dumb it down quite a lot. Whereas if you watch earlier episodes of Who from the Russell era, he doesn't play the audience for a fool, or he doesn't try to oversimplify stuff. He's talking to you, or the character's talking to you like you are a human being. And I think when a show interacts with you on a sort of a sensible wavelength, you click with it a lot more. You're not having to it's not you having to go, oh, right, I'll bring my expectations down a bit. This is kind of going, I'm on board, I'm in tune with it. It ties in with the world and humanity as a whole at the minute. Where are you going to take us? And I think when a writer treats their audience with respect, I think that's when you get the best shows and the best entertainment. You're not trying to oversimplify it. And I think with Who, with it going out into a more global, more younger audience, or newer audience, I think that's maybe where the issues have arisen. And we've mentioned that so many times, where it's felt like the show is kind of either oversimplified stuff, or plot devices have kind of been a bit, I don't know, sort of, I don't want to say childish, but kind of like, do you know what I mean? Where it's kind of like, it's really kind of dumbed down.
It skews a bit younger. Yeah. Yeah,
it's quite what, because Who's always kind of been more of an intellectual show. You've always had you've had to have some kind of not intelligence, but like some kind of understanding of things to really appreciate the show. And I feel like we've missed that so much in the last 2 seasons, apart from the 60th. But in this, I've felt that bond. And for me, it's kind of felt like vintage Russell T Davies, where it's kind of, right, this isn't for kids, this is for adults now, and this is kind of where we're going to go with it. And you've had a lot of that in original Who, but in this, the chasm between the two is enormous. And I think maybe, like you said, it could be an age thing. There could be younger people that watched the show and really enjoyed it. But for me, as a long-term fan, I've been yearning for content like this, and for for writing as strong as this. Because if you look at, I mean, other examples, like, again, It's a Sin, Years and Years. There's a couple that I can't remember off the top of my head. But Russell T Davies is a fantastic writer, because he's, again, like I mentioned before, he puts the character first, and you get the sense of, particularly with Barclay, the fact that he has been thrown completely in at the deep end. He is a fish out of water. These are all fantastic puns that are coming out of nowhere. But you kind of live vicariously through his eyes, and the fear and the panic and the humanity that he has that the rest of the world doesn't really seem to share or want to share. But I'm more amazed, and this is probably another reason why I need to go back and watch Children of Earth, because the fact that these are now in a similar universe, and as you mentioned, there's characters there that coexist. I wonder, like you said, because that's not coincidence. Russell T Davies doesn't do coincidence. He does it for a reason. And I think if the Whoniverse is going to be a thing, particularly now it's going to stand on its own 2 feet away from Disney, it's going to be purely BBC as it stands at the moment, why wouldn't you bring back one of the more successful spin-offs?
I would be really, really surprised if Gwen Cooper doesn't make an appearance in this miniseries. Because you could bring Gwen back, and that's basically bringing Torchwood back, essentially, isn't it? You know, the John Barrowman problem. There's a bit of a John Barrowman problem, but I mean, but generally, you can bring, because I was watching this the whole time. It's very similar to Torchwood. You've got UNIT all involved all over this, and I was just thinking, Torchwood would be all over this, wouldn't they? Like the whole point of Torchwood Children of Earth is Torchwood get involved, and they manage to sort of subvert the bureaucracy of UNIT. So you'd be like, Homo, Aqua, erecting their sculptures all over the world and bringing down a plastic apocalypse. Like Torchwood would be all over this. So there is a Gwen Cooper question, like, where's Gwen? But I would be really surprised if she doesn't appear. Interesting about the Torchwood comparison, Children of Earth and this, is Torchwood Children of Earth went out at 9 p.m. in the evening. I don't know if you remember, but it was like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It was a masterstroke of scheduling. Yeah. And it graduated to BBC One, I think, for that series as well, because up to then, I think it was on BBC Three.
It kind of evolved, didn't it? Because season 1 was nestled away in BBC Three, because we spoke about this. I know we've mentioned on the podcast, but as kids, we'd be kind of very cheekily flicking to BBC Three at night, and there's that first episode, it was full of sex and violence, and you're like,
sex
whoa,
monster.
This is so far. I shouldn't be watching this at my age. That just kind of shows you how far the world's come since then.
She was literally a monster that was going around nightclubs in Cardiff banging men, and then the men would explode.
Due to their, and I'm quoting, orgasmic energy.
Now that's the half-hour scheduling difference, because this is obviously skewing a bit older. It's not as... It's more, these first 2 episodes, especially the second one, is basically like a diplomacy meeting. It's like it's not the most like exciting, unless you're paying attention. It's not the most like riveting, televisual experience.
But do you know what I love about that, though, is the fact that I think a lot of shows, they want to go from 0 to 100 like that. And sometimes the slow burn pays off. And I think you've had episode 1 that's kind of established what on earth's going on, who are the Homo Aqua, how's it all going to pan out. Episode 2 has kind of been the very serious bit. Why are they here? What do they want? How are we going to get out of this? And obviously the major impact, the sort of crescendo at the end, the kind of finale bit. So now you know that we are on the cusp of the war between the land and the sea. Now it gets exciting. We've got 3 episodes to go where it could go anywhere. Because I think, I don't know whether you felt the same, but as far as a visual effects budget goes,
wow.
Episode 2 was absolutely incredible. incredible.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this looks like the most high production bit of Doctor Who. Obviously, this is the same money that they've had for the past 2 years for the Disney era of the flagship show, but this looks like incredible.
I mean, we talked, didn't we, about since the show came back, it kind of had more of a cinematic edge. Kind of the only way I can describe it is, when like Christopher Eccleston going into the first maybe season of David Tennant kind of had that. It was standard definition, but it's kind of like that sort of like kind of hazy, warm kind of glow about it. And then it kind of went into more kind of like solid. And then there was the jump from Tennant to Smith. And when it went into high definition, everyone went, whoa, Doctor in HD. That jump from HD Who to like 4K Who, I didn't get the same wow factor with that jump as I did between Who and this. I felt this is where I felt like this is high production. It feels like you're watching a movie more than you are a TV show. And I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like we copped out a bit from the main show, because I feel like, I mean, you could have taken money away from this if it didn't exist, but I don't know, I feel like it was more impactful this time round, or do you know what I mean? I was more impressed with this than I was necessarily with the main show.
I think my question for you on that then is, why can't Doctor Who as a flagship show? I just want to put this on record. I've actually enjoyed quite a lot of the past few years of Doctor Who. As a whole, as series, when I put them together, they're not my favourite. There have been certain episodes which I've found incredible, like the horror one from this year, just gone, the sequel to Midnight. I thought was really, really good. But why can't Doctor Who be more like this? Because I get that it's airing in a later, at a later time, and there are more adult themes in it. For example, what's his name? Colonel Ibrahim was horny. To put it one way, that's like really, to see something like that is something that obviously you wouldn't get in Doctor Who. But in terms of the plot and what's happening of the Homo, Aqua and humanity going to war, and it looking like this and being set in these sort of environments and these sort of rooms, and it being about negotiation, I think Doctor Who can do that. They did, I can't remember the name of the episodes, but there were some really good Peter Capaldi episodes where he was basically negotiating a treaty between the human race and an alien race. And that was basically it, essentially. And there was this amazing 12th Doctor speech that came out of it. But it's that I think Doctor Who can be this big family show, but I think when it leans too much into that, I think audiences like me and you turn off a little bit, and we're more interested in this kind of stuff. And I think Doctor Who can do this. So I just don't know why they've gone down that route. Sorry, that started as a question, and then it became me just answering it to myself. But yeah, so I think my question to you is: would you like Doctor Who as a flagship show to be more like The War Between the Land and the Sea?
I think, yeah. I mean, in part, don't get me wrong, and I can only use the Runaway Bride as an example. It's the only one I've seen. I want to rewatch like more of the Christmas ones just to kind of reminisce. Doctor Who's always had that kind of camp edge, particularly in the RTD era and beyond. It's always had that sort of very daft side to it, because it is ultimately a show about a time lord exploring all of space and time, and there's so many wacky adventures. But yeah, of course I do, and I think I would love to see more cinematic Who. It's clear it can be done when it's executed well. It looks stunning, and there was a point watching that where I was a bit taken aback just by thinking, is this a Doctor Who spin-off? This is something like highbrow off Netflix or off Apple TV. But I think again, I suppose the difficulty is target audience, because if it's going to be for kids, would stuff like that just be wasted on them? You and I as older people now, I say older people in our 30s, but like, would we appreciate
Look
that
at my
more
jumper, mate. This is a 30s jumper all over. My jumper and your hat, we're really showing our age.
Hey, well, there you go. Well, this is the question, isn't it? Because are we as an audience, are we going to appreciate that stuff more than, say, a younger audience, which is essentially what Who always has been for? I don't know, but I'd love to see. I mean, it's sad now because you kind of go, bloody hell, this is how good it could look, but we're not going to see it look like that because that funding is no longer there, and it's such a catch-22 situation.
That's an interesting. We'll talk about this at the end, but this spin-off is in a very interesting position in terms of when it's been released. Yeah.
Because out of interest, how? Because I mean, if you've watched it, you might have picked it up as well. Obviously, there is a very obvious mention of someone having COVID. So I'm wondering, when did they ship? How long ago did they film The War Between the Land and the Sea? Can you remember when they started to? Was it 2 or 3 years ago? Because I only wonder because it'll be interesting to see going forwards if there's any more of a link between the main show and this, and I wonder how they'll go about, if it does go anywhere, if it just kind of hits a bit of a brick wall like the finale did. But one thing I was quite interested to see, and I don't know whether you've picked up on it as well, Mike, was in episode 1 with Barclay, he's sat on the beach and he's talking about meeting the Doctor.
I thought that was a really lovely reference, by the way. I thought they did a bit overkill with the Doctor, because I think there were 3 references in general to the Doctor specifically, which I thought was a bit overkill. But I thought that one was the best one, where he says, "Oh, I met the Doctor." I thought that was a really nice way of sort of like reminding you that this is a Doctor Who spin-off.
And I wonder as well, because you are building the Whoniverse. It exists. This is the first part of it. Are we going to see more of that link up? Are we going to see, Barclay appear further down the line in Who? I would absolutely love to. Obviously, we've seen Russell Tovey in Who before. He played Captain Alonso.
Yes, yeah.
In another Christmas special.
Alonso.
Yeah. So, and then he appeared in the final episode of Tennant when he's wrapping everything up.
So good.
Captain Jack.
Yeah. Which
I still maintain to this day is one of the best finales because it just tied everything up absolutely perfectly. Yeah, I think in part, obviously, we've said from a visual point of view, it's a shame that we might not see this again, but also from a thematic point of view, are we now going to be in a position where we go, oh, if only there was a 3rd season, and like if they started to introduce this into the world of Who, I think that's when I would have been really excited. But like I say, it's up in the air at the minute. But yeah, the mention of Who, it was a really lovely touch.
It would have been perfect for this to air between the 1st and 2nd series, to be honest. I think what happened was they filmed those 2 series back to back, didn't they? And Russell T Davies's grand plan, which we know hasn't gone to plan, was there to be a constant sort of stream of sort of Doctor Who content coming out. So I think what they've done by releasing it now is they were like, oh, this will bridge the gap between our last series of the mainline show and the Christmas special next year, but it's going to be a really, really long wait. So yeah, I think it would have been, in hindsight, I would have liked this to come out between the 1st series of the relaunch and the 2nd one. But yeah, I think it's. We'll talk a little bit about the plot. So correct me if I'm wrong on anything, but essentially, I knew I was going to like this show at the first scene where the fishermen catch all the fish in the net, and then there's like a scream within the net, and then they kill the sea devil or the Homo Aqua in the net. I was like, okay, this is going to be a much more complicated show than Doctor Who, which I thought was great. I thought the rebranded. This is why Jerome should be here. I don't really know much about the sea devils, but I think they look really good. And then essentially, the Homo Aqua respond really badly to the fact that their comrades were killed and sort of pinned to a cross like Jesus, and then they essentially declare war on humanity under the form of negotiations, don't they? Like they start these negotiations, but they've already got the plastic apocalypse in. They're going to do all of this stuff. So that's kind of the sort of plot of these first 2 episodes, and then we meet Salt, who's the leader of the Homo Aqua, and Salt specifically chooses Barclay as the ambassador over the more political choice of ambassador, and then that's how Barclay gets involved into all of it. And that's because Barclay shows humanity to the Homo Aqua that was killed, right? That's because they know that he paid his respects to them. Yes, okay, so they choose him. And then, negotiations take place at Empress Hall. Barclay is there as lead ambassador, and he's being fed lines by Unit, who he consistently ignores. And then we get that other reference to the Doctor, don't we, where Kate Lethbridge-Stewart says, "Oh, this is like the Doctor." And then the 2 episodes end with Homo Aqua bringing the plastic apocalypse down on humanity, which I think is a really, I mean, visually it looked amazing, but I think it's a really clever idea. And then Salt demands that their 3rd meeting in the next episode is in their environment underwater. So yeah, is that basic? Have I basically got that right?
You pretty much nailed it. Yeah. I'm gonna say there was a couple of things that you've just reminded me about. First of all, and I think it's gonna be an interesting one as the series progresses, is the rate in which the Homo Aqua almost are evolving and understanding humans within this contact. In that,
they're smart. They're technologically smarter, aren't they? Because don't they do something to everyone's phones or something?
They send out a big alert on everyone's smartphones.
That's quite funny, isn't it? Because they're all fish. You're like, what smartphones have you got down there? and
But what I will say is it was that as well. So it was that obviously the alarming fact that even at that first contact where they're trying to translate, but the translation tool isn't good enough. Like they're almost like beyond that. And then when they talk to them in I think it might have been episode 1. I think it was. Yes, it was. And so we don't need your translation thing. We know your language now. And it was those kind of nuances about like sarcasm and stuff like that. They've picked it up within what seems to be days, like very, very little time at all. So it'll be interesting to see just how much further they get. And the fact that as well, she's able to broadcast from her Pearl onto all the digital screens and stuff like that. So she's able to share what she wants to, she kind of communicate with the world as a whole. I also really liked, I mean, that storm was phenomenal. Again, as I've said, I was properly impressed by that. I loved the fact that they'd pulled up the Titanic and it finally completed its voyage. I thought that was fantastic. Absolutely
classic on the nose Doctor Who stuff. Because Sinead, my wife, doesn't like Doctor Who, and I made her watch this, and she enjoyed it. She did really enjoy it, but at the end of it, she was still like, it still has that kind of Doctor Who gimmicky like feel to it. And I was like, I do agree because of the Titanic, and then I also agree, I don't know why they've done this, but when they first appear in the tank and there's all that talk about like unknown creatures, and you've got the Sea Devil design, which looks amazing, the Homo Aqua design, and then you've got these weird blobby fish things. I'll put a picture up on the screen. Do you remember? There's 2 of them flanked on either side, and they're like hybrid Sea Devil like fish. They blob. They're quite fat. They look stupid. They look so stupid, and the CGI on them really stands in like contrast to the rest of the CGI in the show. It looks awful. I don't know what's happened there, but it looks awful. I'll find a picture. I'll splice it into the podcast. But did you pick up on that?
Oh, straight away, yeah.
But it's that kind of Doctor Who thing, which I was watching it with Sinead, and we were like, I was like laughing out loud. I was like, oh, this isn't good. Where you're laughing at something, or like you're laughing at, So yeah, but
at the same time, and like you said, I wonder if like Jerome would have been absolutely pivotal at this point, because there may well have been a character from the Sea Devils which that directly relates to that might have just gone over our heads as more casual viewers. Obviously, if you are watching or listening to this, please let us know, because knowledge is power. We'd love to find out more about the Sea Devils than we already do. In terms of makeup, though, I feel like Salt's character's transformation is absolutely outstanding. That's probably some of the best costume work I've seen in our newly modern Who.
She walks like she shit herself, though. Have you noticed that?
She does, but then you've also got to imagine if you're out of salt water, you are chafing like fuck on dry land. I can only imagine her fishy bum cheeks are like sandpaper. Massive discomfort. And she even made the point as well, the fact that while we're having this conversation, the light is burning our eyes, we can't breathe properly, this kind of stuff. Obviously, hence why they want to bring Barclay and co downstairs into the murky depths. But I also loved as well and you're going to have to remind me, who's the character who the sort of doctor or nurse who's doing like the scans of the babies. They meet. He jumps out of the taxi, goes towards the Range Rover, knocks on the thing. The window goes down, gives him citizenship, but not his mum. And in return of that, that's when you go back to his house, and it's the conversation between. Is it the French? Not consort, sort of like high-standing.
Yeah,
French
she's
lady.
there in the negotiations, isn't she? And then she's at the house later on.
Yeah, and then there's also is it the US General?
Yeah, it's not the US General. It's not General Austin Pierce. I think it's just someone else. I think they're
because he's representing the US president. She's representing the French because they want to have. And this is the thing. And this is so years and years, and so it's a sin. Russell T Davies is a very knowledgeable political writer, and this is another massive plunge into that world.
Plunge. Well, I like it because that scene where where the person doesn't gain the citizenship for his mum but gains it for himself by selling that giving them that information. That is a really bit of subtle social commentary, which it just stands by itself. It's a very short moment, but it says a lot about Britain and who this guy's dealing with, the sort of people that are in charge. It doesn't need to be super on the nose and like punching you in the face, but it's just something that explains something about the plot and keeps things going in a way which adds context to everything, and sort of gives you a grounding in the world that you're in. It's like quite mature. It's like and it assumes that you're paying attention as an audience member as well.
Absolutely. And I really love, I think they've absolutely nailed the casting as well this time round. I think we're only 2 episodes deep, but there is no weak actor. There's no weak performance. All characters incredibly well written. I love the relationship between Barclay and his ex and his daughter.
Again, that's quite full character work, isn't it? Like you feel like after 2 episodes, you kind of understand and know Barclay, and you kind of understand his relationship with his ex-wife and his daughter.
Yeah, and you can tell as well that it's particularly in episode 2, there's still respect there for one another. There's still maybe a bit of love there, and maybe he's sort of lost his way. It's even mentioned in the show that it was an amicable split. But you can still there's love there between the two of them, but also massive respect for him and his daughter. That they are so almost reliant upon each other. Even he says in the show, like, I was thinking of you when I made that speech. So he's very much living now through his daughter's message. And he obviously jokes about you're a hippie and all this kind of stuff. We don't call it that anymore, but it's almost like, I suppose it's conversations that we're having in real life between father and or parents and their children. It's the fact that we've got another generation now who can kind of look beyond the nonsense of the modern world and politics and everything else, and they can see what the problems are and what we need to solve. And it's that kind of clashing of old world and new, which we're seeing in real life, and this is just a reflection of that. And Russell T Davies is great at.
That's when he's at his best.
He's kind of holding up a mirror, really, to society in real life in works of fiction, and kind of going, look at yourselves, this is the problem.
If it carries on like this, I think him and Pete McTee, the other sort of showrunner writer, have done a phenomenal writing job on this, I think.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, as far as a first 2-episode double-hander goes, blown away. Completely blown away, and I'm very excited to see what comes next. Do we know anything about episode 3 yet?
Not that I've seen. I think it comes out next Sunday, I think.
Yeah. And what's the plan with iPlayer? Are they they're only going to drop the episodes once they've been broadcast?
Is it? I assume it's on iPlayer now, right? I haven't checked
Before.
It's So my question is, Dan, why should anybody care about this?
Very good question. Because as it stands right now, apart from a Christmas special, Doctor Who ain't going nowhere. We have no idea how the hell it's going to tie in. Obviously, we have spoken at length about the season 2 finale and all these big ideas that kind of ended up being a bit like wet fish. Another pun, you're welcome. It's a difficult one. My only thought is, and again, it goes back to what we said earlier on, Russell T Davies, he doesn't. Coincidence isn't in his vernacular. He'll be the point of this series that, in my mind, is that it would become a springboard into something else. Now, whether that, like you said, would have been the 3rd series of Who, I don't know. Whether it, because of these links to Torchwood that haven't been fully explored, have been subtly sort of like sprinkled in, maybe that could be another thing as well. Because again, you are building the Whoniverse now; it's expanding.
But do Disney own these characters? Do Disney own Barclay and Salt? Will they? But will they, though? Will they just drop it?
Well, from what I've heard, the rumour is that when they do put it onto streaming, it's not going to be mentioning Doctor Who in any way. It's just going to be a 5-part miniseries, which you see on streaming platforms. You occasionally see them pop up every so often.
I wonder if they'll cut all of the mentions to the Doctor. Can you imagine? Because you could cut all of them out of the show and it wouldn't make a difference.
Well, to be honest, it wouldn't be the first time that a US broadcaster has cut scenes. Or to be fair, do you remember how...
You're not going to bring up the Trump thing, are you?
No, worse than that. Do you remember Miracle Day? Yeah. Do you remember the controversy because it was the Stars Network in America, which in itself was a weird mix for... I think it was something like the BBC weren't going to fully support or back Russell T Davies, so they were like, you can do one, but you're going to have to get another broadcaster to like fund it. So they picked the Stars Network. As a result of that, what I can only describe as a car crash of a Torchwood series now exists. Which I've never watched it more than the first time it was aired because I just thought
I'd love us to go back and watch it. Doesn't it all end up with a big old something that looks a bit like a vagina? Do you remember this? Your face, you like... I don't think you expected me to say that. At the end, Jack is the if I remember right, the reason that things have flipped around so he can die but the rest of humanity can't isn't anything to do with the bad wolf Doctor Who Rose bringing him back to life. It's to do with something that's embedded in the centre of the earth that looks exactly like a vagina.
Can I just say, can we add this onto the list of things to watch?
Yeah. I would love to go back and watch Miracle Day. I will say that I watched a bit of... in the lead up to this, I watched a little bit of Children of Earth just to remind myself what it was like. And I also watched a bit of the first episode of Miracle Day, which was very good. And it was set in basically Cardiff. And then I think it goes a bit wild after that.
That's all I will say. Episode 1 of Miracle Day, you go, yeah, now we're back. Yeah, this is going to be class. The minute they go across to America, it goes fuck up fast. It completely crumbles. There's the one clip I remember because I was watching it back in the day with one of my mates, Tom. I was around his house watching it, and I remember there was one bit, and it was like the most glaring lack of continuity in an episode I've ever seen. They're in the back of like the Torchwood mobile or some kind of van, and there was a monitor, and one of the American Torchwood characters is talking, but his lines appear on the monitor next to him before he even says them, and I'm like, who the hell greenlit this? It's just the biggest oversight in the world. It was so poor. And I think there were obviously a couple of other factors as well. There was obviously, like, I think the lead baddie was he like a Sith? Did he kill children or something? He'd done something really heinous, and he was going to be executed.
It's actually quite an interesting character, yeah. He'd done something unforgivable, yeah. And then I think we'd have to rewatch it, but I think within the course of the series, he has a really interesting character arc where people start trusting in him or something. I think it's all quite religious or something.
And do you know what? And I think, funnily enough, thinking about it, I wonder if that is another one of those shows that was a bit ahead of its time. I think it would maybe have more cultural relevance now than it did 15 years ago when it first came out. But what I do remember more than anything else is that the broadcasts, so it was shown on the Stars Network it was almost about 6 days, wasn't it, before the UK got it? So we were
Don't remember, yeah.
So the idea was, I think it would go out on Mondays. It will go out one day in the UK, but it will come out 5 or 6 days beforehand on the Stars Network. That was the agreement. If the show was going to exist, we get priority of when it's broadcast. And as a result of that, there were some scenes that were cut down. So we got there was one episode, I think, that was almost 10 minutes shorter than the original broadcast in America, because I think it was one of the themes or the things that happened. They said, like, okay, as the BBC, we probably can't broadcast this. So there were full, sizable chunks that went missing. And I thought, well, this is another reason why I hate it, because if we're not going to it's our show. Do you know what I mean? It's a British show. It's one of our, greatest spin-offs of Who, but we don't even get entitled to the full programme. And I wonder if that's changed on iPlayer ever since. Obviously, we live in the age of streaming and VPNs. And I'm sure you can watch the original ones far easier than you could back then as like torrent downloads. We had to watch them at the time. But there are a couple of reasons where for me it just really didn't land, and I feel like in terms of the Disney stuff now, because like you said, they don't have to show it. It's a bit of a flash in the pan. Just put it down as a bit of a write-off and start again somewhere else. But I think they're still going to release it. They'd be mad not. They've paid for a good chunk of it, so they'd be stupid not to do something with it.
You just hear about it all the time, don't you? You hear about this stuff all the time where people create things, but then they just never release them and they write it off as like a tax thing, and it's
Was it Batgirl? Do you remember that one recently?
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
So that they did a test screening with an audience. It kind of received fairly good reviews. But apparently the studio weren't happy enough with it. It was well over $100 million. A finished film, and the studio went, yeah, we'll just consign it to the history books. So that somewhere in storage is a full Batgirl film that has never seen the light of day.
It's all speculation on our behalf because I just think it's the BBC was, I think this is something that we'll have to review in years when Doctor Who comes back, and maybe it's with a different partner, and we look back at the Disney years and we've got more of a complete picture of what happened. But it felt like that they were the BBC were at the mercy of Disney making a decision about what they wanted to do. I think Disney didn't want to make a decision until after the war between the land and the sea, but because of the radio silence and everybody talking about it and speculating, the BBC were like, we have to say something about the future of Doctor Who. So I think they forced Disney's hand into being like, okay. I just think it's quite interesting that the Disney decision came and then this is releasing afterwards. I think it just puts the spin-off in a really interesting, weird place where you get really invested in the story and the characters. But I'm not entirely hopeful that we will really see these characters again. And you want it to mean something. I think what they wanted to do was the first 2 series of Doctor Who that we've just had. There was a whole rebranding. They rebranded them as Series 1, Series 2. It was supposed to be this big launch of the Whoniverse, and this series was going to be the first series that branched off from that. And why doesn't it have any of the Whoniverse branding? That's it, to me, it just screams. It just screams. I think it's going to be really good, but I just don't know where it goes. Where it goes.
Is it something that they've kind of held on to because maybe, I don't know, one of the 2 co-owners didn't want to release it? Maybe they're a bit reluctant to. Like you said, I think we'll only know as the series goes on if it had any context to the main show. But yeah, I think it's such a shame in part. If Russell T Davies has come out and said it is just a standalone, it's going to serve whatever purpose it does, and then we go on to the next thing, cool. I'm all in favour of that. But all I can say more than anything else is it's so nice to be doing a podcast where we're talking about a new episode of something.
Yeah, and we've both really enjoyed it. I think that was quite rare with Doctor Who in the past few years. I think I'm a Doctor Who diehard, so I'll back for anything that Doctor Who does, even Space Babies. But we'd have to go back and watch our review of Space Babies because I think I really liked it. But
you came down on me like an anvil going, but it was great. But a monster made of snot, that's kind of cool, isn't it?
But I think it's fair to say, since the 50th, out of the 3 of us, you've been the most sceptical about Who and whether you were enjoying it and, if it was successful. So I think what's good about The War Between the Land and the Sea, we'll have to wait to see what Jerome says. What's good about it is I do think it is more for us. Like it like I watched it and I was like, oh, this is what I've wanted since the 50th, to be honest. So
the last thing I'm having a look at. So Radio Times have just put out the viewing figures for when it went out. I know viewing figures are an important thing in this day and age, apparently. But apparently, the episode 1 was watched by 2.82 million viewers. Episode 2 held on to just over 2 million of them.
So I don't know the context behind that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because obviously it's a different time slot to Doctor Who. It's not, you'd be forgiven to not knowing anything about it or its relationship to Doctor Who at all. So are they good figures? Are they bad figures? Do we know?
Let me tell you this. So the figures bettered the overnight ratings of any episode of Doctor Who from season 14 and 15, barring the Christmas specials. Although it's worth noting that the new spin-off obviously has a different release model.
Interesting.
So
I wonder how it will do on streaming, because I know a lot of people choose to watch Doctor Who specifically on streaming, on iPlayer. They don't watch it go out live. Because they sort of bank it up and they just watch it. So I do wonder how this will do on streaming, because I think this is the kind of thing that who's seeking this out on the iPlayer? Is this just the sort of thing that just comes on terrestrial TV and you go, oh, I'll watch that, and then you'll watch it live every week because you're enjoying it? Who's going? I don't think it's going to get the same numbers on like BBC iPlayer that Doctor Who would get, right?
Probably not. I mean, like you said, what's been missing from this series that we saw a lot of in the last 2? Marketing. Apart from the odd teaser, I've seen nothing relating to the launch of this program. Even the release date was just kind of like a random. Oh, it's coming out then. It took us back when we got in our little WhatsApp.
We thought it was going to be next year.
Christ,
yeah.
You've seen this.
Yeah.
So again, maybe it's just because of contracts, and maybe they've just gone, well, I suppose we better hand release something. They've put it out that way, but maybe that's a good thing though, because obviously a known brand like Who, obviously there's a lot of expectation mounting on it because of how successful it's been in the past, and obviously from our childhood and long before that. Show like this, there's less pressure on it. Do you know what I mean? There's not so much the marketing side of things. It's not a direct link to Who. It's I mean, it is. It's a spin-off, but it's not. You don't have to watch the original show. So maybe maybe it could do well for that exact reason, where there's less pressure on it, and people probably just enjoy it because it's got a more mature theme.
Yeah, I agree.
You know,
I think finally what we should talk about is there has actually been a bit of Doctor Who news. So Russell T Davies has said that he hasn't written the 2026 Christmas special yet, but he knows exactly what it is, and he's known for ages exactly what it is. And he said that when they told the BBC their plans for the 2026 Christmas special, BBC bosses were left with their jaws agape.
Now, is that jaws agape in excitement or absolute but fuck terror going, oh, fucking hell, Russell, not again. Not again.
Agape. No! It's
why, Russell, why?
They're bringing back the space babies. The BBC were like...
So remember those singing gremlins in the Christmas special? There's a sister planet. Oh, fucking hell, Russell.
It's all speculation, but I think we're going to have some sort of multi-doctor... Like we've discussed before, you can't bring back Billie Piper without anybody around Billie Piper recognising the fact that she looks exactly like Rose Tyler. So, I mean, there has to be some sort of acknowledgement that you look like this person who's so deeply embedded in Doctor Who lore. So yeah, I'm kind of excited about it.
2 iterations ago, you were another Doctor.
Yeah.
A repeat of a Doctor. Unless, like you said, maybe it's just this whole madness thing now where they kind of go, maybe the Marvel concept of like seeing old Doctors again, maybe there's going to be one episode where you kind of see them all and then you go, okay, we're going to shut the door on that, pop that away, and sort of go back to how things are. Because at this point now, the only option, you've either got to go big or go home. You can't just bring back Billie Piper and go, this is totally normal. Because you absolutely can't.
Well, I guess what you could do as a thought experiment, because Billie Piper's a really good actor. If Billie Piper were committed to Doctor Who, where she was like, oh, I'll do Doctor Who for the next 4 to 5 years, she's a really good actor, so that could, there has to be some in-universe explanation, but she could be the Doctor if she's willing to commit that time. Except she's gone on record as saying that she wouldn't commit that time again. She wants to return to Doctor Who, but she wouldn't do it full time. So it's obviously, I don't say this as a criticism, it's obviously gimmicky. There is a gimmick involved with it. But she's a really good actor, and if she was actually the next Doctor, and they were going to make it really contained and just have less reliant on things in the past, but she was leading the show, I could get behind that just because she's very good.
And also, do you not remember, I think it was back in the summer, there was a alleged Reddit leak, and they correctly predicted how the finale was going to pan out.
We didn't believe it because it was...
Which we didn't believe at first, but actually when we saw it, we went, oh, that came to fruition.
Yeah.
There was a part 2 to it, and the rumour was that in this kind of in-between period, we were going to get maybe 4 or 5 one-off specials of Who, maybe dotted across 2026, or 2027, sorry, but with a character, or some kind of version of the character. Do you remember when... Suzanne, I'm going to get her name wrong. Is it Suzanne? Oh, sorry, Saran Jones. She was
TARDIS.
She the TARDIS.
Yeah, really good
episode.
episode.
Her name came up as a rumor as one of these potential characters. So I think I might be totally wrong, but I think it was something along the lines of the Doctor's gone missing, and so there's different remnants of his past that have kind of come back to try and find him, or something else. I can't remember, but that was one of the other sort of secondary rumours that came out. And I mean, the fact that she did come back anyway, that's maybe lit the fuse for the second rumour. I mean, because as it stands right now, it would solve the big issue of who do you cast as who next. It gives you a bit of extra time because you can just sort of play along with it now and just sort of...
Do you think that's why Jerome's not here? Do you think he's been cast as the next Doctor?
Potentially, or he's at Comic-Con pretending to be another Doctor because they've brought them back for the Christmas special. I think potentially.
He's cosplaying as I don't know. Who does Jerome resemble? He could be like... He could be Peter Davidson, maybe. Peter
Davidson, or to be fair, if he shaved the beard off, he could portray Rose Tyler.
He could be one of the Homo Aqua if he shaved his beard off. I think he could be. And we'd be the two little blobfish on the side of him, like that. I didn't mean to call you a blobfish then, Dan. It was just a joke.
To be fair, I'm dressed like a goldfish anyway, so it could be a lot worse. But anyway, let's give some scores, because we haven't done that for this. And it's been a while since we did this. Episode 1. What were the episodes called? Can't remember what they're all called.
Got no idea. I think that's the thing about a miniseries, isn't it? Like, it's more about the thing as a whole. Okay, so episode 1 was called... Homo Aqua.
Homo Aqua.
Episode 2 was called... Plastic Apocalypse.
Plastic Apocalypse, okay. So, episode 1, Homo Aqua, what are you giving that out of 10?
Probably an 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Yeah, solid 8. Solid 8. It sets the tone.
Hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Hit the sea swimming.
Yeah. And then Plastic Apocalypse, episode 2.
I might give it a 9, because even though the 2 episodes just blend into one, I mean, I just watched them straight after another. They could have just been one episode. The actual Plastic Apocalypse, I think, is a stroke of genius. I think the way it's been realised, I think the whole idea of it, we haven't really mentioned this, but Salt sort of, when Barclay goes off script and starts speaking from his heart, Salt almost sort of manipulates him into, do you remember, what is she saying? She's like, you would do anything to speed this process up. It is kind of what he says to her. Because he's trying to be like, this is going to be really complicated. It's going to take us time, and she's like, we need to do it now. And after he says yes, it kind of they start their plan. So sorry, long-winded way of saying I'd probably give the episode a 9 because I thought the Plastic Apocalypse was amazing. You? Well,
I would, without question, give it a 9. I think that's definitely the most solid episode so far. Next episode, that's on Sunday, isn't it? Is that going out at the same time, or is that going out later?
Let's find out. So, Barclay and Salt go on the run in a war-torn London. Next Sunday. Oh, later. It's at 9:20 on BBC One, and it's called The Deep.
The Deep. So 9:20, again, if you're outside of the UK, you won't be aware of something called the Watershed. So anything after 9 o'clock is
Watershed.
Watershed. There you go. 5 out of 5. It's sort of something in the like British TV where after 9 o'clock it's sort of like there's more adult themes, more swearing, kind of like
undersea banging,
just interspecies fucking. That's all it is. Just every orifice on it. That's getting completely cut. Let me do that again. Just a lot of interspecies love. Let's go with that one. Because we are still 10 minutes from Watershed filming this. But 9:20, I wonder if we will see a darker side of the show. Whether things will kick up a notch, maybe we'll see a bit
would be more like Torchwood, because this was more... There was a half-hour difference to when they were aired. Historically, Torchwood was on at like 9, so yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But very excited to have Who back in some capacity. Over the moon that we've got an amazing start to a new series, and very, very excited to see.
So obviously on Who Doesn't Have a Podcast, we're going to be discussing each episode of The War Between the Land and the Sea, episode by episode as they come out. And if you're enjoying these discussions and you want to support us, you can follow us. So we put a little Linktree link under all of our episodes and any of our clips. So if you follow that link, you can follow us anywhere that you get your podcasts, or you can follow us on social media. But yeah, if you enjoy what we're doing here, we'd really appreciate the follow. Yeah.
And give us some ideas for stuff you want to see as well. Obviously, we've mentioned watching Miracle Day because I think that would be hilarious. If there's any other spin-offs, old series, anything that you want us to sort of maybe do reactions from, because I know people like Gogglebox, and I'm definitely like Giles, and you're like my wife Mary.
It's not the first time you said that to me.
It's not, and weirdly we didn't have clothes on. Anyway, long story short, if we are while we've got a bit of a gap from when this series ends to obviously the Christmas special, give us some ideas. Let us know what you want to see at Who Doesn't Pod, as Mike said, on all your streaming platforms, all your social media. Please check us out.
And I'll leave you with this. I always like to sort of do a quick Google search on Doctor Who or The War Between the Land and Sea after we've watched them, just to see what the British press are saying. And this, fresh from GB News, BBC sparks woke fury as new Doctor Who spin-off branded self-righteous box-ticking fest by furious viewers force-fed virtue signalling. What was virtue signalling about that episode?
Maybe the whole... I think maybe the fact that towards the end there was like a character was a bit like Nigel Farage, and that's probably... It's probably felt like it's pissed on their bonfire a little bit.
Yeah, it's definitely based on Nigel Farage.
Hey, if you're pissing off GB News, you're doing something right.
Thank you. Thank you, BBC.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you.
And thank you for watching. We will see you next week.
Take it easy, everybody.